Taoiseach, the 11,500 people who are currently homeless are going to continue to swell unless the government take urgent emergency measures to stop the flow into homelessness. Now, the major reason the vast majority of those people are homeless is because they're evicted. The vast majority of them who've done absolutely nothing wrong. Next Friday week, I will be going into court with a family, people who worked, pay their taxes all their life, haven't done a single thing wrong, and even during a supposed ban on evictions, they are facing an enforcement order to throw them out of their home where they've lived all their lives. But they're over the threshold for social housing support, so they're not even entitled to HAP. So what are you going to do to stop the flow of families and individuals into homelessness? I propose you have to impose a complete eviction ban and buy up the homes, regardless of where they are in income, of those people who are threatened with homelessness.
Thanks very much, Deputies. It's a long time since I've done this. I forgot what it was like, and I've done my best to write down as many questions as I can, but I definitely can't write as quickly as people can talk, but I'll do my best to answer the questions. Just in relation to Deputy Tobin's question on the 166 vacant homes, I'm not sure it's published yet, but it is worth taking a look at the Department's report, which is the Derelict Homes Action Plan. Might be published, maybe not, but it does actually give a very interesting breakdown as to why those 166 homes are vacant, and in a huge number of cases it is for a reason. They're to let, they're for sale, they're being renovated, the person who lives there is in hospital or a nursing home, they're recently deceased and it's in probate, and actually the real number of homes that are habitable and could be available for use is much, much lower than that. I can't remember the exact figure, but a fraction of that. And it does show as well that vacancy rates in Ireland are actually falling compared to the last time the survey was done, and are in line with European norms, but huge variability from different parts of the country to others, as you can imagine. And bear in mind the vacant property tax will only apply to habitable homes, won't apply to those that are not habitable. They're derelict and they're covered under different legislation. But I think whatever the correct number is, there are certainly tens of thousands of derelict properties that could be brought back into use and turned into homes for people, and they should be. We have a lot of very good schemes at the moment, buy and renew, repair and lease, Croí Cónaithe, but at the moment it looks like those schemes are going to bring hundreds of homes back into use every year, and it should be thousands, and we have to do everything we can to drive that forward and make sure that it happens. A couple of people asked about the building defect scheme. It's for apartments and duplexes. I can't remember the exact dates that it applies to. I think it's pre-2013, but that was part of the announcement on the day. We will get the legislation done this year. There will be retrospection. It will be up and running in 2024. It'll be at 100%, but there will be checks and balances. People just won't be able to claim any amount. There will have to be checks and balances, of course, and there will be funding for interim fire safety. And I should, as I have done before, declare personal interest in this, in that my apartment, which is the only property I own, is in a building that has building defects, and therefore I am a potential beneficiary of this scheme once it's up and running. On the tenant in situ scheme, Deputy Batchik asked about this. Very much agree that local authorities should purchase homes from landlords that are selling up, where the tenant is a social housing tenant. That is done. Minister Bryan is very much behind that. We're encouraging local authorities to do exactly that. I'm not sure if we'll be able to do monthly figures, but perhaps we can do quarterly figures or something on those lines. On the whole issue of income thresholds for housing aids, which Deputy McAuliffe raised, I think he makes some very valid points in that regard. The cost of getting work done to your house has gone up a lot, we all know that, and also people's incomes have gone up as well. And it does make sense, I think, to review both the income limits and the amounts that people can get. And I don't know what the outcome of that review is yet, but I imagine Minister Bryan will make an announcement or bring a proposal to government as soon as he can. I met the Housing Commission a few weeks ago. They are nearing completion on their work on the proposed wording for an amendment on the right to housing for our constitution. I don't know what that is yet. I haven't seen it. Look forward to receiving that report. And once we have the report and have the proposed wording, I think the next step will be to consult with the Oireachtas, consult with probably the Housing Committee and see what they think of the proposed wording. But it is a programme for government commitment to have a referendum on housing, and it's a commitment that we intend to honour. But it is important that we get the wording right, because whether you're for it or against it, anything you put in the Constitution does transfer at least a degree of power and decision making from this place, our elected Parliament, to the courts, who are not elected, as we know, but have their role to play. And we have to make sure that we get the wording right and that there aren't any unintended consequences. But I do look forward to seeing their report, and that would be very welcome. I think just in relation to Deputy Manano O'Connor's question, I fully agree that we need to invest in water and wastewater services. As Minister O'Brien said earlier, there's over €6 billion now in the budget for Irish Water, but they do have to prioritise, and they will generally prioritise infrastructure where it's going to provide water services for a site that can accommodate maybe hundreds of people, important social infrastructure and also important economic infrastructure as well. On the £1 billion figure that Deputy O'Callaghan mentioned, I'm not sure if that's correct actually. I think by the end of the year that figure was much, much lower. I can't remember what it was, but it was much, much lower. And a decision was made to reallocate the funding from one part of housing to another part of housing, but it was spent on housing. And when it comes to dealing with the housing crisis, I can just assure the House that there is no lack of money available to do what needs to be done. There is certainly no lack of political will and no lack of care or compassion on the part of the government, but there are constraints. There is a shortage of labour at the moment, and we're trying to build new houses, renovate houses, repair old homes, repair apartments, build transport infrastructure, build commercial infrastructure. There's just a shortage of labour at the moment. Materials are more expensive and not always available. Delays around planning permission and servicing sites. So there are real constraints that this government and any government would face, unfortunately, when it comes to turning the tide on the housing crisis, which is our objective. Finally, just Deputy Boyd Barrett asked about the eviction pause. That's in place until the end of April. We'll have a better idea between now and then as to whether it has been effective in terms of reducing the number of people who are in emergency accommodation and reducing the number of people who are flowing into homelessness. I'm not sure what you mean by a complete eviction ban, but I do think if we... yeah, but people are being evicted because they haven't paid their rent or because they've been engaged in antisocial behaviour, and I think allowing people...
There's people being evicted on grounds of sale at the moment, Taoiseach, at the moment. We've done nothing wrong.